Hey everyone, my name is Chris Green. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to record your first worship song in Presonus Studio One. So if you're a worship leader, if you've been doing praise and worship music at your church for a while, and maybe you want to get into recording, I'm going to try and go through every single step of the process as if you were starting from scratch. Now, these videos tend to run pretty long, so there's going to be chapters, so feel free to skip around if you need to. If I'm doing an acoustic guitar take and you feel good about recording acoustic guitar and you want to skip on to drums, that's just fine. Today's video, I'm going to be recording a song by Matt Maher called Lord, I Need You. I'm just going to do a verse and a chorus, just enough for you to get an idea of the instrumentation. If you're new to Presonus Studio One, you don't even have it installed just yet. I do have a lot of videos on my channel that go into greater depth with that, but I'm just assuming at this point you have some sort of Presonus artist or professional version, or you might be using their subscription plan with Studio One Plus, that's fine as well. I assume you've got that up and running. You really don't need anything more than the artist version if you're doing some of the things I'm doing in this video. I'm gonna try and stick to just using the stock built-in plugins when it comes to mixing, because we are going to record all the tracks first, and then the second half of this video is gonna be all about mixing it so that it sounds like something you might hear on the radio. So again, my name is Chris Green. We're gonna jump into recording this worship song in Presonus Studio One. I just hope you'll hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'm pretty sure Matt Maher or record labels, they might flag this video. I don't want my channel to get taken down, so it may not be monetized. Best thing you can do is hit the like and subscribe buttons. All of the gear, instruments, and microphones I'm going to be using in this video are actually linked in my Amazon influencer page. So there's a link in the description where you see my studio gear. So if you have any questions about microphone cables or anything I'm using, feel free to check that out. You might want to get some of this stuff for yourself. My RME Babyface Pro is my audio interface. The audio interface allows us to take microphones and record audio into our computer, because our computers don't have microphone inputs or guitar inputs for the most part. So RME Babyface Pro is a really great USB audio interface. If you want to go the route of the Presonus Audio Box, it's a much more affordable option. I've done a video on that one as well, but you need some sort of audio interface so that you can plug in your microphones and you can start recording in your studio. My RME Babyface Pro has two channels. I'm mainly going to be using channel 1, where I have my TLM 103. It is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. I'll use this on vocals and acoustic guitar a lot. And then my interface can actually expand. It has something called optical in, or ADAT, where I can use my older audio interface. I have a Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40 on the floor. It has 8 microphone preamps, and that's what I use mainly when I'm recording drums. So on my drums, I have microphones that I'll go over before I start recording in just a little bit. Basically, all of those microphones from the drums are going into my 8-channel audio interface that's on the floor underneath this desk, and then that is going through my RME Babyface Pro. Now let's open up Presonus Studio One and get started creating this song. So here's the home screen on Presonus Studio One. You just want to make sure before you create any new songs that your interface is showing up. Make sure your interface is working. For the most part, USB interfaces and Thunderbolt interfaces, most of them tend to work as soon as you plug them in, but it's going to depend on what kind of audio interface you're using. The Presonus audio interfaces are really good about, as soon as you plug them in, when you load Presonus Studio One, it usually recognizes your interface right away. Make sure your interface is working before you start recording, but go up to the top left where it says new, click this little plus button, and this is how we create a new song. I'm just going to call this one Lord, I Need You. That's the title of the song. Always give your songs a title. If it says untitled song or 001, that can get confusing. The more songs you start recording, you start to forget what session you're working on. So give it some sort of name. And then below the name of the song, you want to tell it where you're going to save all of your audio files to. So it defaults to your documents folder when you install Presonus Studio One. Make sure you've got the documents folder selected wherever you want to record files to. You can even use an external drive. So if you're recording all of your tracks on an external drive and you want to take it with you somewhere to record drums at your church, or you go to your friend's house to record guitar, record to an external SSD if you can. Make sure you keep all your files and folders organized properly. Then we have sample rate. I'm not going to go too much into sample rate for this video, but for the most part, if you just keep it at 48 kilohertz, you should be good. So click this little drop down menu. Some interfaces can go as high as 192 kilohertz, but 48 is going to be really good. I'll tell you this, back when we were listening to CDs in the 90s and early 2000s, CDs had a maximum of 44.1 kilohertz, which is the lowest that you'll see with audio interfaces nowadays. Now, if you had a high fidelity CD, you could get some of those that would go up to 48K, but today it's nice in digital recording. We can just set it to 48K. Don't overthink it. Then I'm just gonna click OK. As soon as I click OK, I'm met with a brand new session in Presonus Studio One. Down here at the bottom right, you have a Browse tab, a Mix tab, and an Edit tab. For the most part, I just want to close all of these because it just visually, it looks a little confusing to have more stuff going on the screen. First thing I want to do is set the tempo for this song. So at the bottom of the screen where it says tempo, you should see something like 105, some sort of number is going to be there. For Lord, I Need You, this song is at 75 beats per minute. So I can just click wherever it has a number. I can type in 75, hit enter. Now my tempo of the song has been changed to 75. You can also double tap where it has the word tempo. This is a tap tempo. So you can just click every quarter note. And as you start to click, you'll see the number changing as well. So I'm going to change it back from 89 to 75. That should be good. As I work my way to the left of the tempo region, you should have this little metronome icon. Whenever that is blue, you should hear a click track, something on the computer that we'll hear in our headphones. When you're recording, if you can record to a click track, 99% of the time, that's the way you want to go, especially if you're going to be recording more instruments like drums, vocals, anything like that. It's going to be so much easier if you record to a click track. You can also click C on the keyboard. That will turn on and off the metronome in your ears so that as you're listening, you'll be able to hear that. So if I just hit the space bar with the metronome on, you should hear the click track. Okay, that sounds good to me. Again, all the stuff I'm using in this video, I'm using these closed back over-ear headphones. These are by Beyerdynamic. I've also got them linked in my Amazon influencer page as well. You can check those headphones out if you need a pair. You can also use in-ear monitors, anything that's going to keep the click sound. If you start to record and you hear that click track, you can either turn down your click, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute, or you can get a nicer pair of headphones that have more isolation in them. All right. I mentioned I was going to show you how to change the click track volume. If you click the Mix tab down here at the bottom right, there is a fader, and just above the fader where it says 0 dB, there's this little triangle that's pointing up and a triangle that's pointing down. It says click volume. If I hold the mouse, if I click and hold, I can move this little fader up and down. So a lot of times I like to set the click volume to something like -8 dB. And as you'll hear, if I start this song, if I hit the space bar, you'll hear that the click track's much quieter than it used to be. Okay, -12, -14, set the click track to an appropriate volume. When you go to record, that's where you'll be able to tell, is the click track louder than what your microphone is hearing? Because if you can't hear the click when you're recording, that can be frustrating. So make use of the click track volume. Simply open the Mix tab and go just above your main fader. You can change the volume there. Now, some of the navigation things with the keyboard, again, like I said, if you hit the space bar, it's going to play and stop the music. There's these two arrow keys just above the space bar. And if you use the left arrow, the one that's pointing like this, if you use that arrow key, it will shift your cursor, will go way back to the very first beat on the first measure. Very handy. So if you're listening to a song, you hit the space bar, it should play a little bit. Wherever you hit spacebar, that vertical line will stop. Right now we're stopped just before measure 2. If I want to go back to the very beginning of the song, I can hit that arrow I was talking about, and now we're at the beginning again. Next thing I'm going to do is add a track. We need to add some tracks. I'm going to hit this plus button up here for add track. I want to click audio track because an audio track is anything that you're going to be making noise like audibly in the room. So I think about this as being analog. So I'm about to record an acoustic guitar. An acoustic guitar is an instrument, but this type of instrument on Presonus Studio One, that's referring to MIDI instruments or electronic instruments that are getting their sounds from the computer. So if you're making music, if you're making sounds in the room without a computer, like an acoustic guitar, a bass guitar with an electric guitar, any of that stuff, we're gonna go to audio track. We wanna add an audio track. I'm gonna call this one acoustic. It's gonna ask you how many acoustic tracks do you want to make. For right now, I just want one. I'm gonna give it a color. I usually color acoustics yellow. It's gonna be a mono track, meaning I'm just using one microphone to record this. It's going into my audio interface. I don't want to use an effects chain preset. And then my input is channel 1 on my RME interface. Let's go ahead and click OK. Now, if you don't see the inputs on your audio interface, go up here to where it says Studio One and go to Options. Then under Options, go to your song setup, then audio input and output setup. This is a grid, so if you're familiar with doing like old school geometry in school, on the left side, I have the names of all of my tracks. So my tracks originally said input left and right, and then right where it says TLM 103, it used to just say input left or input 1. You can double click right here to rename those however you want to name them. But essentially, this is the first channel of my audio interface. On the top, you have the more technical name of what that channel is actually being routed to. So my TLM 103 is going to my first channel of my analog audio interface, and that's analog 1 parentheses 1, okay? Whenever I have an M right there, that is a mono track. And I'm going all the way down. So channel 1 on my RME is TLM 103. The second microphone input channel on my RME interface I have set up for my electric guitar amp. So that's going to analog 2. Analog 3 and 4 are my guitar or instrument inputs that are on this RME interface. And then after input 4, we start seeing what's called ADAT1, ADAT2, ADAT3. That is my Sapphire Pro 40. So as you can see, I've got a nice clean graph where all of my tracks are being routed down the line. Make sure that's exactly how it needs to be. You'll need at least one input if you're going to be recording. And anytime you want to add a track, you can just click add mono and then make sure that mono track is being routed to the right channel. Assuming that's all good, I want you to click this I button. That's the inspector tab. When you open up the inspector tab, you have kind of a shortcut version of what the mix tab looks like. It's just much cleaner, and what it will do is any track you have selected, like vocals, drums, or whatever, it'll give you a kind of shortened version of what's going on with that track. So here we have my acoustic track. I'm going to arm it for recording. So if you click this record button up here next to the track, it's not actually going to record right now, but what you're telling the computer is any track that has this red circle, okay, this red square with a white circle in the middle, is armed for recording. So as soon as I hit record, it's going to start recording audio on whatever tracks I have record enabled. I also want to turn off this one that says monitor. That's because this is software monitoring. If I have this blue icon turned on, you'll actually hear a delayed signal, which is not very good for the most part. Some Presonus audio interfaces, they do this better than some others do. They talk to the software a little bit better. But for the most part, I want to turn off that blue speaker icon. So I just have this one armed for recording. When I open up my RME software, this is 99% of you out there are not using an RME interface, but basically just know that on channel 1 of my RME interface, I can control my interface through its own software called RME Total Mix FX. I just want to make sure that my microphone has phantom power. All condenser microphones do. And then I want to make sure that I have this unmuted so I'll be able to hear in my headphones the microphone.
Test 1, 2, test.
All right, I can adjust the gain here, turn the pad off.
Test 1, 2, as you can hear my voice through the TLM 103.
All right, so in just a minute, I'm gonna grab my acoustic guitar and I'm gonna get this large diaphragm condenser mic set up just right. I might even need to stand while I'm recording the acoustic guitar, just so the microphone is somewhat pointed right above the sound hole on my guitar. I want the large diaphragm condenser mic to be pointed pretty much in this region, so I'm not getting all of the sound hole. The sound hole on the acoustic guitar has a lot of low end that actually sounds really boomy and can sound a a little bit bad, but I want to aim for this kind of chunky wood region with my microphone. So how do I get there? I can either raise the microphone up or I can just stand up with the microphone. So now I am pretty much ready to record the acoustic guitar. Anytime I want to start recording, I can just click this record button down here on the screen. You can see this white circle. If I just click record right now, this is me recording an acoustic guitar. If I hit spacebar, it will stop recording. And as you can see, we've got some audio there. Might need to be a little bit louder, but you'll be able to hear what's happening. So this is what my microphone heard.
This is me recording an acoustic guitar.
Very good. Anytime I don't want to keep a take, I can just click that big yellow region. I can just hit the delete key or backspace and it will remove it completely and I can start over. With that being said, it's time to play Lord, I Need You with the guitar. So I need to make sure I've got my chord chart ready and let's record. All right, so I just recorded my first take on the acoustic guitar. Let's take a look. Anytime you want to zoom out just above the track that you recorded, there's a bunch of measures that kind of look like a ruler. Anywhere I put my mouse, if I click and drag up, I can zoom out. If I click and drag down, I can zoom in to 8th notes, 16th notes, and so forth. So let's zoom out and let's go back to the beginning of the song and we'll hit that arrow key. As you can see, I've got a good healthy signal coming in. I can hit the space bar so we can hear what it sounds like on the track. All right, that sounds really good to me. I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 more acoustic tracks. Now these 2 tracks, I'm gonna pan out left and right. These are gonna kind of thicken up the sound a little bit. And I'm gonna use a pick this time to do some strumming. So let's go ahead and do that. The best way to do it, if you're still recording the same instrument, just right click where it says acoustic and then click duplicate track. It's not gonna duplicate the audio that we've recorded. It's just gonna add acoustic 2. And then if I duplicate again, we have acoustic 3. So now I need to disarm acoustic 1. So turn off the armed for recording and I will arm acoustic 2 for recording. So now it's ready to record. I hit the arrow key, the one that's pointing to the left just above the space bar to go back to the beginning of the song. I'm gonna make sure my metronome is turned on. So I'm gonna hit the C key. So we have that blue icon on metronome there. And now we're gonna record acoustic 2 and acoustic 3. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and record vocals while we've got this setup going. I'm gonna use the same microphone that I used on the acoustic guitars. I'm gonna go to Add Tracks. I wanna name this one Chris Vocal. I'm gonna have one of those. Let's go ahead and color it blue, maybe a light blue. It's gonna come in through channel 1, the TLM 103 here. So now we got that, let's add the vocals. I'll tell you this, usually when it comes to singing, I get my wife to come in and sing some stuff because I'm more of the guitar player. But if you'll bear with me, we'll record some vocals and I'll show you how to even tune the vocals if you have something like Melodyne, which used to come standard with some of the artist versions of Presonus Studio One. Don't hold me to that, but Melodyne's a great alternative if you don't have the UAD auto tune.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you, oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness, oh God, how I need you.
All right, so there's the vocal track. Let's go ahead and take a listen to see how it sounds. Again, this is unmixed and untuned. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, before we even play it, this section up here, you can see a little blurb like I was just talking into the microphone. Very quickly, if you take your mouse and put it right at the edge of the audio track, you see how it turns into a vertical line with some arrows pointed. I can click and drag this region, and if I click and drag, you see how it goes away. It's almost like I'm deleting that information. Well, I know that I'm not going to want to keep, no matter what this is, it's not where I'm supposed to be singing, so I can just click and drag. So now the audio region for my vocal starts where I'm actually supposed to be singing. So that's just a quick tip if you want to move some of the tracks around a little bit. It also works to click and drag these around, but timing wise, I feel good about it. Let's turn off the click track and take a listen to a little bit of the vocals.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free.
Now, before I can record drums, I do need to add the drum tracks. So let's go up here to add tracks. And this time it's still an audio track. I'm just going to call it drums. I have 7 drum microphones that I want to use. Those are going to be not 77, just 7. They're going to be red. And I want to start with the TLM 103. And I'll go ahead and click OK. As soon as I do, you got all these drum tracks, which I can go through and rename. Double click any of the titles up here where it says drums 1. I can double click and make that say kick. If I hit tab, I can name this one snare, tab, tom 1, tab, tom 2, and so forth. Then I've got a hi-hat, ride cymbal, and then a room mic. So my room mic is actually going to be my TLM 103. So on the left side of the screen, next to where it has the name and the arm for recording, you can change the input so you make sure your microphones are going to the right destination here. Ride cymbal is on ADAT 2, it looks like. Sorry, I'm so blind. ADAT 2. Okay, room mic, TLM 103, ride cymbal, hi-hat is on ADAT 1. Tom mic is ADAT 5. 5 and 6. This one should be 6. Snare drum is on ADAT 4. Kick is ADAT 3. All right, so once those are all ready, I can hold the Shift key and make sure they're all selected. I can click Record Enable. As soon as I do, you should see a signal coming in. If I clap my hands, you can see all of my drum microphones are ready to go. The microphones on my drum kit are as follows. I have a Beta 52 on the kick drum. I have a Shure SM7B on the snare drum top. I have an SM57 underneath my hi-hat pointed up. Then I have an Audio-Technica small diaphragm condenser mic underneath my ride cymbal on the other side. And then my two tom mics are Sennheiser clip-on tom mics. Again, all that stuff is on my Amazon influencer page if you want to take a look at any of that. But with that being said, I can just grab my drumsticks, step over to the drums, and make sure I'm ready to record. Now, whenever I'm recording drums, I know I need to have more than one take. An easy way to make sure I don't have to keep going back and forth to the computer is just above the measure count on Presonus Studio One, you have this pencil tool you'll see on the screen. If I click and drag this all the way to the front of the song, and then I hit the question mark or the slash key on the keyboard, you see it turns light blue. That is my loop region. So it's going to continuously loop over and over again. When it gets to the end of the song, it's going to loop back and start playing the beginning of the song over and over again. If I use this, I can simply hit record right now, and it's going to start recording my drum tracks. But I don't have to step over right now. I can take my time, because when it loops back around, it'll still be recording the takes over and over.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Grace is found, is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
All right, when I get back to the drums, if any of the takes, usually it's the last take is the good one, but if I right click any of the drum tracks, there's an option for select take, and I have take 1, take 2, and take 3. As soon as I select take 1, for instance, you see there's no audio being recorded. There's audio recorded, but I'm not hitting the drums at that point. I was just moving over. If I right click, go select take 3, now we see much more drum tracks available, so make sure you have those selected. Then I just want to select all of my drum tracks, turn off the record enable, and let's go here and take a listen to what it sounds like with drums. Now again, these aren't mixed, so hold off on some of the expectations there. Let's hit spacebar. We'll take a listen.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Grace is found, is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need.
All right, those drums sound good to me. You are hearing the room mic. Room mic is this TLM 103. It's always going to be louder than some of my other drums, because at this point, I don't want everything to be clipping, but I haven't done what's called gain staging. I haven't level matched all of my tracks. So just so you know, the kick drum does sound like a kick drum. You can select whatever track you want and hit the S key to solo. When you solo a drum track, for instance, like the kick drum has been soloed, you should only hear the kick drum. Same thing is true of the snare drum. And in just a little bit, I'll show you how to EQ those things and make them sound more professional. But with that being said, we've got all the drum tracks recorded. We got a vocal, we got the acoustic guitar. Let's go ahead and add some bass. I'm gonna click add track. I wanna add bass. Just want one bass guitar track. I'm gonna color bass a dark blue. and it's coming into my third input on my RME Babyface. I call it Electric Guitar Direct. You can drag and drop it below the drums would be fine. I'll click Record Enable. Got a good signal coming in. We are in the key of A. With that being said, I can just click the click track and let's record some bass.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Grace is found, is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
All right, so just like with the bass guitar, I'm using the same cable because it's going through my pedal board. On my pedal board, when I'm doing electric guitar, I have a Peterson tuner. I've got an Ibanez tube screamer, I've got a delay pedal, and a Strymon Iridium. The Strymon Iridium is an amp modeler, similar to like the Line 6 Helix. Basically, I can get a direct signal into the computer without having to turn on an amp or anything like that. So I'm just gonna duplicate my bass track, and I'm gonna call this track Electric Guitar, or EG1. I'm gonna change the colors over to the left of the track. I can change this to a nice green color for guitar and go to the beginning of the song. I can turn off the bass arm for recording. I can just turn on electric guitar with all my pedals in place. I can just do a simple arpeggiated thing with the electric guitar and maybe add in some rhythm chords if it needs it, but I really like the acoustic feel of the song to begin with.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Grace is found, is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
I'm gonna duplicate my electric guitar track. So we got electric guitar 2. Let's try to dig in when the drums start building, and we'll pan these two out as well.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Grace is found, is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense,
All right, those are pretty thick, so I'm gonna do one more pass on the electric guitar, and this time I'm gonna clean it up. I'm gonna turn off the distortion pedal, and I'm gonna use something that's a little bit more arpeggiated, kind of like what we did with the acoustic guitar number 1.
When sin runs deep, your grace is more. Grace is found, is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
All right, so as far as recording the tracks go, that's about as far as we're gonna take it for this video. Now it's time to mix these tracks so that they sound a little bit more like something you'd hear on the radio. All right, the first thing I want to do when it comes to mix is called gain staging. Gain staging, it sounds more complicated than it is. Essentially, I want to make sure all of my tracks were recorded at a similar volume. An easy way to do it is just to select a loop region of probably the loudest part of your song. So here I'm going to select the chorus. I'm just going to have it set to a loop. I'm using that pencil tool just to select a loop region. Make sure the loop is active by hitting the question mark key or the slash key. And then with the loop active, I want to solo each track, and I want to look on the meter that's on the left next to the fader, as long as you got the inspector view open. I want to see how loud the volume is. I basically want to aim for anywhere between -12 and -24. How do I turn them up and down? Well, as you can see, when I have the blue track selected for my vocal, there is a white square right in the middle of the track. If I click and drag this white square down, you can see that the waveforms get smaller. I'm basically turning the gain down after I've recorded it. Once you get a few tracks set to that -18 region, visually you can just look on the screen and be able to tell where you're at. Again, this is we're not mixing right now, we're just getting ready to mix. So if stuff doesn't sound good when you have everything at the same volume, obviously you'll need to adjust it later with EQ, okay? So I'll start with the vocal. I'll just hit the S key for solo, and then I'll hit play, and I'll take a look at the meter, make sure I get the clip gain set to where it's around -18.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need.
Okay, so that vocal needed to be turned down. It's at -4.7. Let's move on to the kick drum. I'm going to solo the kick drum by itself. All right, and it's important when you're listening to the kick drum, you are hearing some ride cymbal. This is called mic bleed. It happens all the time. We can adjust that later when we're mixing the drums, but make sure you're listening for the kick drum and how loud the kick drum is on the meter. Snare drum. Okay, as you can see, that didn't really take that long to clip gain all of these. Visually, you can see just on the screen, all of the waveforms look like they're about more similar than they used to be. Some of the tracks had really big waves, other ones were really small. Now it's a little bit more neutral. Let's turn off the loop and just take a listen to, this is just a bland mix, everything the same volume. Let's take a listen. Lord, sounds good, and it sounds a whole lot better than it did, but it's still not mixed. Obviously, we're gonna want the vocal to be louder. We're gonna want the drums to be a little bit more exciting. First thing I can do off the bat is take electric guitar 2, pan it to the right, take electric guitar 1, pan it all the way to the left. Then with my drums, I like having the ride cymbal on the right, about R40. So anytime you don't want to go fully to the right or fully to the left, you just simply click where it has the C for center. You can type R40, R50, anything you want. And then for left, I pick the hi-hat. I'll do left 40, so L40, and hit enter. The toms, I'm going to put the floor tom on the right 50. And then my rack tom, I'm only gonna go left 20. I don't think I hit it but one time in this song. So now we got some stuff panned out. Let's take a listen to that. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need every hour. Sounds real good. Let's start with the vocal. So real quick, I'm gonna blaze through this mixing process just because there are over 400 videos at this point on my YouTube channel, and some of you have been watching for quite some time. Others of you might be kind of new. I'm gonna try and cover as much general mixing advice as I can, but make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, because if I go too much intricate detailed into this mixing process, I'm gonna lose a lot of you. So I'm just gonna go quickly, but I'm also gonna try and make it as good sounding as I can using the stock plugins. I mentioned this earlier about tuning. The Studio One Artist version, back in the day, Artist version 3, it came with the introductory or like the student version of Melodyne. Melodyne is a tuning app program plugin similar to Auto-Tune from UAD. It does require a little bit more finessing than Auto-Tune does, but essentially does the same thing. If I right click the audio file and I go down here to where it says audio, I should have an option for edit with Melodyne. As soon as you do, it's going to open up the edit window, and then we've got all of these lovely pitch notifiers from Melodyne. So this, as I scroll through my vocal, these are the notes that I'm singing. And most importantly, you can see which ones are flat, which ones are sharp, because it's basically reading the notes like a sideways piano. What you can do, if you're just brand new to Melodyne, you can hit Control A. We select all of the pitches that I'm singing in, and then click this little button here that says Correct Pitch Macro. So all of these pitches together, this is more of like an auto-tune function. I can make the pitch center, and watch what happens to all the notes that I'm singing. You'll notice them to start to click into place. So all the flat notes will get more in tune. They'll get a little sharp. Sharp notes will be flattened. If I do pitch center and just move this slider to about 60, 70%, and then pitch drift up to about 30%, it should sound noticeably better, but I want to hear, does it sound too much like T-Pain? Really shouldn't, but let's click OK. I'll solo the vocal. Let's take a listen. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. Sounds good to me, and I think it's noticeable. What I like about Melodyne is it's not noticeable enough to be like T-Pain. It's not really going for an effect. It's more natural sounding. Let's take a listen to that in context of the rest of the mix. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Okay, obviously we need to address the volume of everything. So let's go ahead and make a basic mix. If I open up the mix tab, I can remove all these little instruments that I don't care to see all these over here, but here we have faders, which is similar to what you'd see on a mixing console. The easiest way to mix is essentially move the faders to where you want to prioritize the mix. So since we've gain staged, I can set my vocal to 0 dB, and then I'm going to go through each of the tracks and basically going to tell it where the fader needs to be. I'm going to keep the kick and snare at 0 dB. I'm going to keep the toms at 0 dB, but the hi-hat and the ride cymbal, I just want to hit -6. Get a starting point there. -6, and you'll see that the faders should move into place. So those faders are a little bit lower than some of the others. The room mic is exceptionally loud. I usually put that about -9 or -12. The bass guitar, we'll move that down to about -3. The electric guitars, I can set them both to probably about -6 or so. I like the sound of the acoustics and the lead electric, but they still need to be at least at -6, just so they're not getting in the way of our lead vocal. So let's take a listen to those moves there. So essentially we're just moving the faders around so that we're prioritizing things like the vocal, the kick drum, the snare drum, and the guitars and stuff, not so much.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you.
That sounds good already. I can do some more mixing here. If I click the vocal track, and I click up here where it has a plus button on inserts, this is how we add plugins. Plugins are essentially just going to be extra juice or sprinkles on the cupcake when it comes to mixing. I'm going to scroll down to the Presonus folder and add what's called Pro EQ. I'll use this pretty much on all of the tracks. But let's solo the vocal, and I'm going to EQ this in real time. Just take a look on the screen of how I'm mixing this. And then for more tips, you can watch the videos on my channel on how to mix vocals and some of the other songs I've done on how to record your first song.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour.
Okay, so essentially all I did was I rolled off a lot of the low end, because when I'm on this large diaphragm condenser mic, when I say B or P, any of those plosives, they're going to sound like guns going off in our ears because it's picking up so much low-end information. So I can roll that off. My low cut filter is way up at 223 Hertz, might be too high, need to adjust that later. And then I'm taking out some of the honkiness in my voice around 687 Hertz, that's about 5 decibels there. And then I'm using a high shelf, which is just boosting some of the crispy high end on the vocal. That's up at about 5K, again about 5 or 6 dB. Here it is with the EQ.
Lord, I need you. Oh,
Here it is without.
I need you.
So we instantly just opened up the vocal. Next thing I want to do, if I click the plus button right here at the top, I can add a compressor. A compressor plugin is going to take the loudest parts of my singing. It's going to make them a little bit quieter so that the quieter parts of my singing sounds more normalized. Okay, so we're taking away some of the dynamic range. The loud parts get a little bit quieter, quieter parts get a little bit louder. Again, I'll just mix this one in real time. You can look at the screen as I'm mixing.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you.
All right, after the compressor, I do want to add some reverb. If I want to add a reverb to the vocal, I can basically just add it on the track. That'll be just fine. I won't get into buses, anything too complicated with this video. So I'll just add it right to the track. I use a room reverb from Presonus, and I want to load what's called a plate reverb. So they have one that's called flat plate. A plate reverb is not going to modulate the track, so I don't want to modulate the voice or guitars or anything like that. And the main thing with this is the mix knob down here. How much are you hearing of the reverb? How much are you hearing of the original signal? With just adding the basic preset of flat plate, let's take a listen to the vocal.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where you are,
I could hear a messed up note on Melodyne and moved it to the wrong place. So if I double click the vocal track up here, let's go back and find that spot and I can move these around.
Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness, holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, where you are, Lord, I am free. Oh, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ. Holiness.
Okay, we'll leave that there for the vocal. Let's move on to the drums. Back on the drums, I want this kick drum to be massive, so I'm going to add an EQ plugin. And let's solo the kick drum. Okay, I'm just boosting some of the fundamentals as well. Let's add a compressor to that. I'm gonna drag and drop the EQ plugin from the kick drum over to the snare drum. Drag the room reverb over to the snare drum track as well. Take a listen to that, how that sounds. All right, so far we're getting a mono reverb sound. A little trick you can do here is almost like a hack, is go over to a mono track and change it from mono to stereo and listen to what it does to the reverb. I'm gonna do the same thing on the vocal. Take a listen to those. All right, for all the drums mixing, I do have a new playlist on my channel about how to mix drums. Essentially, I'm just looking for the fundamentals of each of the drum, the thing that I want to emphasize. I'm rolling off the things that I don't want to emphasize, make cuts on things that sound harsh, make cuts on things that sound muddy. And if it sounds crispy already, you probably don't need to add any more high end. So on the hi-hat track, usually most of the time, I'm just rolling off with a low cut filter so it sounds bright and sizzly. And I'll do the same thing pretty much with the room mic, except I'll add some more of that low end back in and just take out the mids. Let's take a listen to all the drums now. So here are the drums quasi mixed for now. Sounds good. Let's listen to context of the rest of the mix. Here we go. Drag that compressor plugin over from the snare drum track, and you can use presets if you want. There's one for bass guitar. Up here, bass guitar, we'll just go with the default and see how much it's doing there. Anytime you're getting about 6 decibels of compression or less, that's usually a sweet spot and it's not too noticeable to the untrained ear. Especially if you're using presets, make sure you mess with the threshold knob to get the sound that you need. And I'm curious to listen to these guitars and just hear what they sound like on their own. Yeah, so on this electric guitar, I'm doing kind of more of a lead part. I'm gonna switch it to stereo mode. I'm gonna drive that same room reverb we used with the other ones. I'm gonna do the same thing on the acoustic part where we're picking. Switch it to stereo, drag over a room reverb. Now let's take a listen to the guitars. Yeah, those are kind of competing with each other. So I'm gonna put the acoustic picking over right 30. I'm gonna put the electric guitar picking left 30. And that might just do it for today's mix. If I hit play, let's take a listen to the chorus.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
All right, last thing you want to do before you export your file or your mix is go over to the main fader. Click up here where it says Inserts, go down to Presonus Limiter. The limiter is going to be the last effort of the computer to make sure it stops all sorts of clipping from happening. So if I take a look at the loudest part of the song, I'm going to look at the limiter and make sure that it's not clipping. It'll be up here where it says 0 and you can see reduction. If the reduction has something like -6, -9, that's a lot of limiting. So you need to turn down your overall mix. Might be too loud. Let's take a listen.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
There's so many other things you can do, adding distortion, adding some flavor and all that kind of stuff. I want to encourage you to hit the like and subscribe buttons for more in-depth mixing tips just like that. On your main bus as well, your main output, if before the limiter, you may want to add an EQ plugin. You can get some extra goodness out of those. If you want to rearrange the order of the plugins, simply click and drag. Studio One is really intuitive, so if you think you can click and drag it, you probably can. But just for instance, if I play the mix, my overall mix, I'm basically EQing the entire mix overall. If I hit play, I'll do some mixing in real time here, and then that'll pretty much be it.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
So last thing you want to do is export your songs so that you have some sort of file, MP3 waveform. If you're familiar with using the loop region, just drag out the loop region to the end of your song, and then also make sure you catch the beginning of the song so you're not leaving any of the goodness off. So this one starts about measure 3. I'm going to set the loop region maybe about the 3rd or 4th beat on the 2nd measure. So everything of my song is within the loop region. I can go up to Song, Export, Mix Down, title the song, Lord, I Need You, cover. Okay. Exporting a WAV file is going to be the highest quality, but also the largest file size. So you can keep it at 24-bit 48K, or you can go to MP3, export an MP3. Just make sure you set it to 320 kilobytes per second. MP3 is going to be a lower quality, but it's also easier to email to people. Then click between the loop. You want to export everything within the loop. Make sure you're exporting your main output. As soon as I hit OK, it is now going to process all of our plugins, all the mixing stuff that we've done so far, and it should give us some audio files, a WAV file and an MP3. So here you can see in my file explorer, there I have the files, and we can listen to the song, or we can send the song off to whomever. So hope you enjoyed the video. Again, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Let me know in the comment section if you have any questions about Presonus Studio One, or let me know how your mixing is going, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Check the links in the description, and I'll see you next time.